Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the Riptide. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think, Jamil and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Greetings, Cretans.
Another episode of Brew Strong. live from the, whatever we call this, my noisy brewery, your,
my secret lair.
Outside Cascade Brewery in England.
Tasmania, actually.
Tasmania.
Yeah.
Right.
This is my alternate lair. Yeah.
I do the show here because there's 20 some odd taps available for my enjoyment while I do the show. Because if I go at home, I have zero taps at home.
Ah.
So it's all packaged there.
Yeah. I guess I've got one beer on tap, 2 beers on tap at the moment. But I also have some very nice bottles that you can't see due to the thing of mead here in front of me that I'm looking forward to drinking.
I've cracked into these a little early. The wife was like, hey, I'd like to taste some mead. So I'm like, well, all right, I'll open them. Yeah, today on the show we have Moonlight Meadery. But first I wanted to talk about our fine sponsor, John Blickman. And I wanted to mention the Anvil Foundry. I know you have one, John.
Yeah.
It is a really cool all-in-one, all-grain system. If you're ready to give all-grain brewing a try, you're going to want to try the Anvil Foundry, or at least look at it. You streamline your setup. It is an easy to use, easy to clean, easy to store, all-in-one burner, mash pod, boil pot, cooler, everything, all in one. Holds like 1 degree Fahrenheit. The unit that'll do 3-gallon batches, which is what you're using, right, John?
Right.
That's like $275.
It's inexpensive. Yes, it's
that's a low price for all grain system.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And then if you want to go to the 5-gallon, it's $95 more.
Yeah, it's a great deal. Comes with a chiller. You can order an additional pump, but you don't need it to use the additional pump.
I'm just saying, why don't I have one? Just send me one. I think I could use a 5-gallon. If I ask John Blickman, it ain't happening. If you ask John Blickman, you can get anything you want from John Blickman. I'm just saying, go to anvilbrewing.com and order yours today. I'd love to be able to talk about it from first-hand experience and tell you how great it is, but you're just gonna have to listen to John on that.
Right. Well, you're excited about the 5-barrel size, I believe.
Yes. However, I keep thinking to myself, I want to do a couple of little small batches at home in my garage again. I really do.
Yeah. It's a very satisfying way to spend the day, that's for sure. Or half a day.
I got some friends that own breweries and live around my area, and we can all just kind of hunker down and do,
small batch,
little 5-gallon batch.
Everybody bring a handful of hot pellets, and
it'd be fun. So,
indeed.
Unfortunately, I don't have an Anvil Foundry.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, unfortunately, you don't have any friends in the brewing business, but Foundry, you're right. Right.
That's a fact. Well, let me introduce you to my dear friend, Michael Fairbrother from Moonlight Meadery. He's also got a brewery, he does cider, he does it all. And he does it all really well. He's, Michael and I go back to the homebrewing competition days.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And judging days.
Yeah.
How you doing, brother?
Great. Thank you, Jamil. Nice to see you guys.
Yeah. I mean, we go way back as well. I mean, homebrew cons back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I remember you were the one that called me out when I walked out of the women's bathroom at one conference.
Okay. What was I headed there for myself? Is what I
No, I came out with a confused look on my face, and you was like, "Hey, wrong one, right?" It's like, yeah.
Okay. How many times have you accidentally walked into a women's restroom and gone to the bathroom? I mean, completed the process and then left.
I don't know that I've done that.
I've done it at least 3 times.
I was at a beer fest in Savannah, Georgia, where the lady took to the men's room and then took to the urinal. That was definitely bizarre.
Now that I've seen a number of times, especially like football games, things like that. It's like the line for the women's room is like 3 hours long. The line for the men's room is walk right in. And so women will go into the men's room. I understand that. I'm just saying that I have accidentally, it was accidental. I'm just
right.
It was twice at a Carl's Jr. where the Carl's Jr. had like their bathrooms arranged one way. And there's one somewhere on I-5 where the bathrooms are switched. And I just, ran in there, went to the bathroom, came out, washed my hands, and like a couple of women, come out of the stalls or come into the thing. And I'm like, uh-oh. Wrong. And then another one, again, this is always on I-5 where I'm like driving to San Diego or Los Angeles. And, I'm a one stop real quick, get back in the car, go kind of guy. I make it down in a couple hours. And then there was a Burger King. And for some reason, I just went into one of the bathrooms and I was there like peeing like a big horse. And some woman came in to like clean the bathroom. She's like, oh, I hear that behind me. I'm like, come back out. I'm just like, damn, it was the women's room. Yeah, and nobody else was in there. I don't know. So it happens. It happens a lot. So don't you be judging John Palmer for going to the women's room. It's, it's kind of the way things go.
Yeah, beer conference, you kind of expect, some confusion at times. But when I did it at my wedding rehearsal dinner, that was embarrassing.
The worst part is when you do it at home. Come on.
You got a his and hers. You're doing way better than I am.
Nope, no his and hers here.
All right. Questions are already rolling in for you, Michael. Eric asked, is Moonlight still distributed in I assume the San Francisco Bay Area? We used to get them through Half Pint, but don't know where to get them now for our tap room.
So it's Liberated Distributors. So Liberated, their short name, Northern California.
Okay. I'm thinking, I've got a tap room. I've got a full restaurant, with our kitchen, and I can serve other stuff. I'm thinking I need to have some Moonlight Mead in my tap room.
Awesome. We can make that happen.
I appreciate that, brother. Michael and I, we've actually done some collabs. We did Evil Bee, which is still really popular. I haven't brewed it in a while, but people really remember that with fondness. It was a IPA with orange blossom honey. Quite delicious. And then did we do the Bloody Bee after that?
Yeah, that's the Belgian quad I think we made.
So like quad with like a massive amount of honey. I think we're shooting for like 18-20%, something like that. And then the thing stalled out in fermentation. And so we worked on it. It was orange blossom honey. It was, some malt and then blood orange. And so 5 years later, because it went into barrels, because it just stalled out. Went into barrels, I added Brett our local Brett that we have that we captured that will ferment up to like 18% or past 18%, because most of the Brett will stall out. And I had nothing else to really drive it. It was just really syrupy sweet. And so we put in these wine barrels. We added this Brett, and it took like another 3 years. So the total of 5 years, it's been at least 6 years since we did this. I have kegs of this. And like once a year, I'll put on a keg of the Bloody Mead. It tastes like, cross between a really good English old ale and a mead. It's really fascinating. It's quite nice. I really enjoy it, and it sells. It's 18%, so we do it in these tiny little glasses. So it takes a while to go through a keg, but we go through a keg.
Awesome. Yeah, I've seen some Yelp reviews from I think Japan maybe or China on it. So you must have sent some overseas.
Right. Japan, Korea, something like that. Probably Japan. May have gone to Singapore. I don't know. They have an appreciation for something that takes 5 years, but it's really expensive. You serve in a tiny glass. They're good for that. All right. Let's start with Michael. How did you get started making mead?
Way back 1995, I was just about a month into my local homebrew club, Brew or Die. I'm still a member. It's been a lot of remote clubs of late, but I haven't been able to make as many. So we're at a joint Boston wort processor, Brew or Die summer holiday party, and somebody offered me a sizer. And I had no idea what a sizer was, and I didn't want to embarrass myself and say that, so I passed my glass over. This gentleman poured me this stuff that I took one sip of, and I lit up like a little baby. I was like, wow, what is this? And he said, apple mead. I'm like, what's mead? He said, a wine made from honey. I'm like, I was a beekeeper. How do you make wine from honey? And he proceeded to tell me, and the very next day I went home and I made 2 batches. And that right there, I could tell, man, that stuff's legit. That's 8 years, I think, in the barrel. We got some 20-year-old Scotch barrels. But so I fell in love with that flavor and self-taught on how to make a lot of mead. I've read and lectured now at various colleges, and National Honey Board has paid me to present at their beer conference. We've won this year. We took grand champion at the San Diego International Beer Festival for mead and cider. So I'm pretty damn happy with how life has gone. I mean, we've sold almost 2 million bottles and cans at this point. So we branched out into cider about 3-4 years ago now, and we just started our Hidden Moon Brewing Company, launching our beers. We've had a few contract brews released so far. We have our IPA with honey, pretty similar to the Heretic Evil Bee, I might add. And then we've got my Russian stout, which is
nice.
Copious amounts of organic wildflower honey from Brazil.
Nice. That sounds good.
So have you made wine?
I have made 4 batches of wine in the course of 25 years. I would not say I'm an expert. I would not say I'm even good. I would say my chocolate making skills are better than my wine making skills, and I've made more chocolate from cacao nibs than I've done in wine at this point.
See, the great thing about you, brother, is that you don't poo-poo any of the fermentation arts. You're into all of it. And while you may focus on one more than the other, you love all of them, right?
Yeah, there's nothing that fermented I really don't enjoy a lot. Kimchi to you name it.
Sauerkraut to anything. Yeah, they're all great. Do you have a sense as to which is the hardest to make of all those, since you've done them all?
Well, I'd say mead's the most unforgiving, right? So there's several common elements among the various types of fermentation, and it really boils down to treating your yeast perfectly so that it consumes the sugar to make your alcohol. Mm-hmm. The challenge with honey is your type of honey can change, and dramatically be different year to year, batch to batch. So how do you try to find commonality? Like when you're buying 2-row or grain, you have a pretty good idea of it's going to fit into this window. And I've got a pretty good idea about my honey. However, I can taste when my suppliers blend a different blend of honey into it. So, that can, like, if they add some eucalyptus flower honey to it, you've got a whole different ball of wax. And when the colors change from like a water white to a medium amber, that's something customers notice as well. So the raw materials present a lot of hardship. Yeast is crucial. I've really kind of honed my skill around 1 or 2 different styles of yeast or varieties of yeast to work with. To make it consistently be amazing is what's really hard. I mean, if you look at how many mead competitions that I've entered over the last decade, I've taken medals at every one we've entered. So, you don't get to the crop level by just winning it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I like to think of myself as the seat of the pants brewer, mead maker, wine, cider maker. But there's been a lot.
I just throw shit on the wall and see if it sticks. You're a heretic.
Well, I was trying to say that, but it's hard because I really think of myself as an artist, and I can't tell you how to paint. Like if you could paint the painting. But I think of flavor in almost like a 3-dimensional presentation. Like, what does it taste like? How does it feather on your taste buds? What's the after effect?
How does it feel? How does it feel in the mouth? How does it make you feel afterwards? Oh yeah, all of that. What is the music playing in your head when you taste it? And it's all part of it. There's art and a science to all of this.
And it's the combination of both that makes it so successful.
Well, and one of the things you mentioned, you're going completely off track of the outline I sent you. I'm just saying, he's jumping all around. What's the matter with you? One of the things you mentioned was, from a water white to an amber. I think most people, when they think of honey, they're thinking of a bear filled with honey and it's got that amber color to it. And I would bet you that the honey producers, a lot of the time, that's what they're thinking. They're thinking, it needs to have this amber color, otherwise consumers won't want it. Whereas what you're looking for, is something where it is, varietal, where it is, annual crop, where it is
clarity of flavor,
or particular flavors, or reducing some flavors. So you don't want this amber colored, squeeze it out of a bare honey. You're looking for something particular. What is it that you're looking for in the honeys that you use to make meads? Are you looking for that lighter color?
Yes.
Honey, or are you looking for single source, kind of like, orange blossom, mesquite, alfalfa, whatever it would be? Or how do you make your choices?
It's really complicated. So it's all of that. We do buy wildflower honey, but the only wildflower honey I buy at this point is certified organic. So we're bringing in that organic honey from Brazil. That means there's at least a 6-mile radius around those beehives where there's no pesticide.
There's all organic.
Because the bees, gather the nectar from the flowers, bring that into their honey pouch, and then pass it back and forth to get it to the consistency of honey, which the bees will eventually fan in the comb to get it to thicken up. But it's all those enzymes that are happening between the bees and the nectar and everything that gets honey to be what honey is. And so if there's pesticides there, that's going to go all downstream, right? And so that's why I think we're one of the only USDA certified organic meaderies in the country at this point in time. So we have two meads that we've gone through the process. And when I say process, it's a process. They come in and it's government. They want to inspect. How do you guarantee your honey's not contaminated from other honey on the same truck?
Which meads are those?
So we have sensual, which is our straight up traditional wildflower. And then we have African blossom. So we brought in this organic honey from Zambia. So they're up there and they've got these hollowed out logs that they put into the canopy of the forest, and the bees fill it up with honey and they reach in with their arm and scoop the honey out. And it's sustainable. So it gives these folks a way to make a living. And nice. The dark honey. So you were asking me about the differences of honey and why do I choose which one I choose. Yeah. So the darker the honey, the higher the mineral content. And that mineral content may taste really nice when it's sweet. But if you ferment it to dry, it may be more bitter and more harsh, almost like it's almost like a tannin level to that flavor profile. Whereas a lighter honey, when it's almost bone dry, can present almost like a white wine. So it has a lot more uniqueness and delicacy to the flavor. Well, I find that the darker the honey, the longer it takes to get to where I enjoy it.
Does that mineral content or something about that darker honey, does it precipitate out, and maybe that's part of the process over time, or what's happening over time that makes that darker honey mead taste better? What's happening there?
So there's certainly some oxidation that's taken place over time, and I think that can help round out some of the flavors. I think honey meads in general tend to age a lot better than not, and I think it's because honey is a really good antioxidant in general. The oldest mead I've ever tried was 60 years old, and it was just mind blowing. Right? I couldn't even think of how to describe it, other than. It's not like I can draw a picture and say, here's how you get from here to there. It's really something else. The one mead you guys have in front of you that I did send you is fairly well-aged, which is Do Tell. So I got these 20-year-old Scotch barrels from Scotland imported into the meadery, filled it up with, I believe that's apple cider. And, it's got all the complexity. So you get the hints of the peat from the Scotch, the barrel, almost a smokiness to it. This, main reason I shared it because my father's favorite. We got onto a vlog here for a podcast, and it's just got, I call it hang time, but the flavor just really just sticks with you. It's.
I really enjoyed it. It has, a really nice forward oak character, and it's got a bit of a spiciness to it. The apple in the background, the honey, the whole thing.
The
really
Scotch character
very nice. Yeah. I think that's almost an advanced mead for people. I think. And I was talking to my wife about this and meads we would serve here in the tap room. And I was like, well, I think most people, when they think mead, they think, oh, something sweet, tastes like honey. That's it. Not something, drier with, all this complexity to it.
Yeah, we make most of our best sellers are fruited meads, so melomels. Particularly our apples, we've won pretty much a gold with every apple-based mead I've ever produced. And it's really got to do with the locality of the apples to our facility, which is less than a couple miles down the road, or we can get it delivered within that day. So they'll press 10,000 bushels of apples, bring me 5,000 gallons of juice in a tanker trailer truck. And by the next day, I've got it in a tank with yeast and honey, and away we're going.
Yeah.
So do you ever do any sort of adjustments on, the mineral content or the pH for your meads, or how do you approach this? Are you just putting water and honey and yeast and letting it rip, or?
Yeah, it's pretty much that. So water supply is crucial. Like I'm in the midst of trying to figure out the future for my company and where we want to be hosted at. And I'm about to spin up a new company to buy a 100-acre farm, and it's far enough away that I'm, worried about the water content and how that's all going to come together. But how I make mead today is usually 25% by volume honey, 75% by volume water. And if I want to change that ratio, whether it be with juice, like our apple meads don't usually have any water added whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But we usually target between 32% sugar to 40% sugar. So 32 bricks to 40 bricks is our typical starting point. And we try to finish most of our meads between 3 and 4%. So we're getting roughly 14% and higher on our meads. And when we make a session mead, I'm brewing it like you might make a really big beer, but you want to double the size of your tank. So you're planning a smaller beer, so you're going to add water after the fact. But it's what I've learned, and we've talked about this before when we brewed together. It's temperature control. It's yeast management. It's literally the most crucial thing. Well, sanitation.
Yeah.
But I mean, assuming you have your art down, or the science down, and you know how to sanitize and know how to take care of all the ingredients, and you need fresh ingredients. The fresher, the better. The local sources, the better. But just because it's local doesn't mean it's good. It's got to be good first.
Right.
And then the yeast, and all the money, all the money is in temperature control and fermentation kinetics and being able to track our systems. Like we've just started using, I think it's Brew Monitor to keep track of real-time analytics of the fermentation. So keeping track of temperature, keeping track of what the actual gravity is, keeping track of how much oxygen levels are in the meads, because we're adding nutrients over the course of the first 3 days, and then 7 days later, we have the final addition. And what that nitrogen is doing is giving the yeast an ability to stay in multiplication, right? So stay in growth mode instead of consumption mode. And so we're essentially creating this massive army of yeast that goes to work. And now I can track it, right? I can see exactly what's happening as as we add the nitrogen addition. The gravity doesn't go down as fast, but the cell counts are going through the roof, right? So that's all critical to everything, and it seems so simple to me. I don't even know how to describe this stuff.
All right, I have been quite slovenly in my
time management.
Exactly. And I blame it on your meads because I started before the show. I'm just saying. So we need to take a short break. And when we come back, I want to ask you about more about yeast right after this.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Are you looking for a simple brewing system that's great for all grain brewing, but everything on the market seems to be full of compromises? Blickman Engineering has the answer. The Blickman Brew Easy All Grain Brewing System. The Brew Easy is a complete system with easy upgrades and a beautiful compact design, perfect for any size brewing location. At its core, the Brew Easy is built on 2 gorgeous Blickman Boilermaker brew kettles, a high-temperature March pump, and either a top-tier gas burner or the new Boil Coil electric heater. The Brew Easy adapter lid allows the pots to stack on top of each other, forming an efficient, strong, and compact brewing setup that comes in 5, 10, and 20-gallon batch sizes. Upgrade your Brew Easy system with full automated control by adding a Blickman Tower of Power temp controller, and make moving around easy with the Blickman Kettle Cart. The Brew Easy is modular. If you already own a Boilermaker kettle, you can build your Brew Easy by purchasing just the modules you need. The new Brew Easy all-grain brewing system. See it today at BlickmanEngineering.com and brew with Blickman quality on your new Brew Easy.
Back to the 2 guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. Michael, so we're talking fermentation, how critical it is, to everything that's fermented. So whether it be beer, cider, mead, wine, sauerkraut, cheeses or whatever, kimchi, whatever it might be, the organisms present, the temperatures, the substrate that they're fermenting, all this stuff is critical. So I want to ask you a few questions, specifically on yeast. What yeasts do you like to make meads? What are your favorite yeasts that you'll use? And then and for what reason?
Yeah, for the last 10 years, I've used exclusively Lavallin 71B. So we pitch at ballpark about a gram per gallon. And then, but like I said, we're spending
a gram per gallon. That's a ton of yeast. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not cheap. But wow. And I don't reuse these ever from batch to batch. Mm-hmm. So I explain it to people like this. If I told my wife I was $100,000 batch or whatever the cost was, because I wanted to save a few bucks, she'd kill me. And I don't mean just figuratively. I think she'd actually kill me. So, I've really, tried to figure out where can we do the best possible thing? Right? How do you take care of it at the absolute best? And this yeast is the canvas to which I know how to create all the flavors I know how to create. Mm-hmm. So whether it's the cranberry mead that you have, called No Need to this is, I believe, a Best of Show winner in San Diego a few years back.
I think it's my favorite. I don't know. I like them all. Depends on which one I'm drinking.
Well, I've got 100 different varieties. I think 60 in the tasting room. So
I think I'll have 100 different favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to but the same yeast can change the flavors of what you taste and how it tastes. And when we play with oak, that's just doing a whole new level of difference on top of it.
Right.
There's a Chattanooga whiskey distillery down in Tennessee. Their head distiller used to work for Sam Adams up here in Boston. And so he was familiar with my brand and my meads. And he called me up one day and he says, you want to swap some barrels? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, send us a few barrels. We'll send you some. And I'm like, okay. I'm trying to worry about the cost of shipping these things down there and what's this all going to take. And he lets it slide that they got a 50,000 square foot warehouse. I'm like, you got the shipping on this one. And it worked out great. We've been doing this several times now, and they've really taken care of us. And I've gotten to try some of the whiskey aged in my mead barrels. And it's all cool. And this year, well, not this year, start of next year, 2021, we'll release Utopian X, which is 10 years in the barrel. So that'll be our oldest mead aged in Sam Adams Utopia casks for 10 years. And we're getting cool.
And don't forget, where this was mentioned, that perhaps you should send a wee bottle to your friends out here on the West Coast. I'm just saying that.
This stuff's going to rock your mind. I mean, I haven't released it in 5 years. And, we're going to have two more releases after this. So batch 15, so 15 years in the barrel. And then batch 20, hopefully I'm long retired by then, but 20 years in the barrel.
Wow, that'll be nice.
All right. So you 71B, Lavallin 71B. What temperatures are you trying to ferment at?
I like 67 is the base set temperature. So from
not 69. A lot of people like 69. I'm just saying.
We give it a 3-degree shift, so it'll go down as low as 64 and as high as 70. But the ideal mid-range is 60, 67 for this style of yeast. Of course, there's different yeast, and each yeast likes its own comfort zone, and it matters.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and one of the things I found when I'm trying to do a really high adjunct beer, or when I was making meads and ciders, I found that the nutrient addition was critical, because there's very low fan. There's, the mineral content's not the same as, malt grown out of the earth, all this stuff. And you really needed to, provide the appropriate nutrients. What do you do as a nutrient addition for your meats?
So we use Fermaid O for organic. So the Fermaid company, or Lalaman, makes several different versions of Fermaid O. or fermented. There's fermented K, which is kosher. O for organic. We switched up when we were trying to get our certification, and it's an organic form of nitrogen is what it really boils down to. Right. So honey is pretty devoid of any nitrogen. So like grapes have plenty of nitrogen. Malt has plenty of nitrogen in the grand scheme of things, but adjuncts, or honey in particular, do not. And so if the bulk of your fermentation is coming out of honey, you're at a deficit. And so how do you find neutrality on that? So we don't quite have the tools yet to do yeast assumable nitrogen testing, but from trial and error over the last 25 years, I've gotten a pretty good base level knowledge. I mean, it's like cooking. I can throw a pinch of this in, or pinches or buckets these days, but our biggest batch is 3,100 gallons.
I will tell you this: if you have an Anheuser-Busch brewery near you, go and talk to them and say, "Hey, would you test this for fan or for zinc or for whatever you want?" And those people, at the brewery, they're brewers. They're lovely people. They love brewing, and they'll sneak off a couple of samples in the lab and test it for you.
Yeah, most of the guys I know that used to work there don't anymore. Mitch Steele, a good friend of mine, he used to homebrew.
Right.
He's been around a bit.
Yeah, a lot of the people that are there now, it's the same thing. They work there because they love brewing, and especially they're like, "Oh, local meadery, oh." And you'll sling me a couple of bottles of your fine stuff? Sure. All right.
I got a friend who works there now in the brewing department, so I'll give him a ring and find out.
I would reach out. Jamil,
I want to mention, just for the audience's sake, as Michael's talking about nitrogen, this translates to amino acids in FAN that we were familiar with in the brewing side. And so just wanted to clarify that for the audience.
Do you do a timing of your additions, Michael? What I found on the brewing side is when I'm doing a super high adjunct beer, like trying to drive something to 20+%. When I'm adding those adjuncts, I want to add a little bit more of the nitrogen. I want to add a little more fermented fermented K.
So you're step feeding your brewing adjuncts into the brewing process?
When we're doing something, we're trying to push something to like 20%, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't have a lot of experience doing it that way. I've been told for 25 years the way I do it is wrong. But it didn't stop me 25 years ago, and it's certainly not stopping me today. So for the method that we follow, there's this, what's it called? Tanza method, or Tanza 2 now. So Sergio from Melovino put together this website, meadmadebright.com, and it shows you a calculation of how much nitrogen or nutrients to add and what schedule. And, since before he put up that website, that's the process we've pretty much followed. What do you think of the packaging, Jamil?
I love it. Really nice. And the case it came in and everything, really high quality. Yeah, of course, you've always done stuff that way. You're not a do it cheap or do it quick or do it easy kind of guy. You're always
better rather than faster, cheaper.
Yes.
Yeah, expeditious versus quick.
Bigger, better, bolder. That's you, Michael. Let's take another short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about additions such as fruits, spices, or all that other stuff right after this.
Learning to brew has never been so disgusting. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We're talking with Michael Fairbrother, our dear friend from Moonlight Meadery. And what's the brewery name?
Hidden Moon Brewing Company.
Hidden Moon Brewing. All right. And he's been making a lot of great stuff for a lot of time. And one of the meads that he sent us was Caress, which is a raspberry addition to the mead. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, how do you go about adding fruits and spices and, other things to your meads?
So most of the fruit goes in primary. So whether it's whole or pressed or in a concentrate format, it's going into the mixing tank. So we'll start the mixing tank with some amount of water in it. Then we pump our honey in. We warm the honey up to about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And at that point in time, if it's in a juice format, we're adding the juice to the mixer. If it's whole fruit, like when we make our wild blueberry mead, and we're using 6 pounds of blueberries per gallon, the blueberries are frozen, and then they go into the fermenters, and then we pump the must or the mead on top of that. So that pretty much means that 1,000-gallon tank's going to make 500 gallons worth of blueberry mead because you need that much space just to hold the fruit. Mm-hmm. The hardship with adding fruit in whole format is there's a lot of waste. So there's a lot of unrecoverable mead at the end. Mm-hmm. And then there's a lot of head, to push the cap down the fruit to allow the nitrogen or the CO2 to escape. You have to really push hard.
When you're getting a lot of head, you have to push hard. Yeah. It's the mead talking. I don't know. Yeah. I love the color of this mead. You're using a ton of fruit or a ton of juice in this, right?
Yeah, I like to go big. I really, you guys were just talking about it. I want the flavor. So my inspiration for this was like a dessert style, after with let's say a German chocolate cake, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's delicious.
And
this is my favorite.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think it's worth pointing out to the audience that, versus beer, that, in beer, we often talk about adding fruit to the secondary, or in your case, you do a separate fermentation of the fruit and then blend the two together, the beer and the fruit wine. Whereas in mead, fruit and mead or the honey are all simple sugars. So there's no need to separate the fermentations in the case of beer. In the case of beer, we're working with maltose, a disaccharide, and versus the simple sugars like fructose and glucose. In mead, it's all fructose and glucose, with a little bit of sucrose. So, I think that's one interesting difference in the fermentation styles of the two beverages.
And I find that flavor-wise, you can almost get more of I term it as a jelly-like flavor if you add fruit in secondary. So it doesn't taste as much integrated. Now, the opposite is true for any spices that I add. Spicing always takes place post-fermentation. So usually the mead will be racked and clear before I start to spice. And at that point in time, I'm running a clock on the spices. So usually a maximum of 72 hours is my mead in contact with the spicing, whether it be coffee, chili peppers, cinnamon, vanilla, star anise, can't even think of them all. Some ingredients we can't legally use. Like I bought some pea blossoms. Not allowed. So not listed under the general acceptable ingredient list. And
the grass.
Yeah, it's always fun to hear that after you've spent money on stuff. But I wanted to create this really cool looking purple mead, and the answer was no.
Bummer.
Yeah. That sucks. Send me some. I'll take that. Let's see. Can you share some tips? Johan was asking, can you share some tips on how different it is to judge beer and mead?
Yeah. Well, the beer world has done a really good job at trying to quantify styles and what makes a particular style judgeable, right? So American Porter or American IPA or a lager, you name the style, there's a defined category. Now, if you jump to the mead world, there's like 4. And so, and it's almost infinite number of variations to mead that you can have. Right. And so the mead world's tried to quantify it by dry, semi, and sweet. You've got fruit, traditional, metheglins, which are meads with spices, and an open category, which is basically anything and everything else. And oaking levels can be moderate to mid to none. So you can have historical meads, which are lumped under open. And what the judging aspect of it should be the same, which is judge the totality of the beverage in front of you. Is it good? Do you need to taste all the elements? No. Does it taste integrated and well balanced? And like the raspberry mead, Jamil, you were just trying, right? I should know better after 25 years to double check before I submit it into a competition. Submit it as dry. It is nowhere even close to dry. And they just on clicking the entry form. Well, now, if I was judging this as a judge and it came to my table, I tasted, I'd say, okay, something happened here. Can you give any more information? Now, on the entry slip, I crossed off dry, but I put down sweet in hopes that somebody might have said, hey, by the way, I think there's a mistake. Didn't go to the right table, didn't judge as such. My fault. No problem.
It's sweet with a fruit acid to balance. Which I think it's brilliantly balanced. I think it's delicious, and I think people that are into wine or mead or cider would really enjoy it. That brings up another question. What is the best temperature to enjoy mead? Is it one temperature, or is there like a range of temperatures, or how should you enjoy mead?
So I like it depending on the outside weather. So when it's summer here in New Hampshire, this year we started offering slushies. So we really freeze the mead to the point where it's colder than ice. And it's amazing. Literally, you can drink too much and you need to stop.
I've never drank too much. Not happening.
But like wintertime, I'll enjoy that mead like you just had at cellar temperature, usually maybe room temperature, but I don't mull the meads that I make because it doesn't take a lot to boil off the alcohol, and I work the hardest to make that alcohol taste so smooth. So to me, that's really a danger zone, and why take that danger after taking so many months to make this what I call a wonderful liquid. And but like when I'm in Arizona doing tastings, or Texas, Florida, it's usually at a pretty good chill level to it. But the colder you make it, the less honey you taste. So, I like to joke around. There's a reason Budweiser advertises or mandates their beer must be served ice cold. They don't want you to taste it.
What about brewing a Bochet? Joanne was also asking, never tried one, but I'm interested in the process and possible taste results. I will tell you this. I can't remember who it was who sent me the Bochet from the CIA, which is a homebrew club out in Texas, and I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was absolutely delicious. Looks like we lost Michael here.
And
have you had a Bochet, John?
I don't think so.
It was kind of smoky, caramelly mead. So you take the honey and you essentially kind of burn it, and it adds a ton of flavor to the overall mead. I thought it was one of the best things I ever had. Was this Bochet from Michael? Have you ever done one of those?
Yeah, we have.
What is a Bochet? I don't know.
Oh, that's great. So Bochet means mead with honey that has been caramelized and or burnt. It's the process of heating up the honey to the point where it's almost becoming like caramel, and then using that. Now, the best example I've ever had was when I judged at the ANC in Australia. God, it's going back a few years now, but and this gentleman has since gone off to create his own meadery. I believe it's called Erosion Meadery. And
screw him. He went off and did his own thing.
So what he talked to me, and he shared his recipe with me. He created these little like caramel dots on a piece of paper. So like every 15 minutes, he was measuring the color and of how the color was changing over time. And to me, it reminded me of the candy they used to sell when I was a kid, which was like this sheet of paper with different colored candy dots on it. I don't remember what they were called, but it was a long time ago. But I found it fascinating to think of you could then take what I've been doing for so long in a whole new direction and try to work with that. Now, in general, I usually find bocets are burnt and taste horrible. So there's a fine line between caramelizing honey and burning the crap out of it, and you can't recover once you burn it, right? So there's too much, and then there's not enough, but the ideal is just enough. So when I made my first bochet commercially, what I did was I took 20% of the honey, and I used that almost like a spicing element. So 20% of the honey for the batch I caramelized, and basically had a room full of people watch me. And liquid honey boiling is extremely, extremely dangerous. This stuff lands on your skin. It's gonna.
So you're taking full thick honey, you're putting it in a kettle, and you're trying to boil it
and reduce it. Yes,
I mean, you can't reduce it much further, or you end up with a solid brick. How does that work? I mean, do you just like kind of feather in the temperature, or?
No, well, so you stir in the daylights out of it to keep it from just scorching. So I've got a 30,000 BTU burner that I used to use to get some bourbon barrel, Chris, that I used to use in my homebrew setup for doing decoction mashes. And so, it is very fine control. And I basically put a half, 15-gallon pot onto that, and I put in about 20 pounds of honey and then just let it rip. And, about 45 minutes later, I had it boiling pretty vigorously and globs of honey are flying around. And, I'm like, okay, I'm good enough. And then I add water at that point, trying to bring that honey back down. But, my honey treatment method here at the meadery is no heat. We do not cook that honey.
Right.
So we're trying to save all that aromatic and the natural beauty of that honey flavor that, the bees have worked so hard for. Specifically with our organics, we don't want to come anywhere close to it with anything. We got to certify that we've actually cleaned the tank before we put the water in the tank. Of course we do that. It would go bad. The government doesn't want to hear, of course. They want you. We have to sign off on log sheets and everything that we've actually done this and track the honey from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. And how do we prevent it from becoming commingled once it's been bottled? And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, the bubbles break, they're done. We're not sucking the mead back up. But bocets are really. I think the biggest concern I have is safety and trying to boil honey like that. It would be like, Jamil, imagine if you had malt extract and you wanted to reduce that down in size and complexity. I mean, it's dangerous, right? It really is dangerous. It's like,
if we lose an employee or two, how did it taste? That's the concern right there. I don't know. No, of course I'm kidding. But this one I got from the CIA, I thought it was stunningly good.
Nice.
Yeah, it became like kind of my favorite mead style all of a sudden. I'm like, ooh, all right. I didn't think it would be good. It was, but it's the caramel, the light smoke. I thought this was done brilliantly. I thought it was perfect. Speaking of spicing and all this, let's see here. Eric was also asking, he said, can we, as he says, for distribution, he says, I can see that I can get bottles here. Can we also get draft here again? We had Kurt's apple pie on draft when we first opened. It was hugely popular.
So we can make that happen. So my email is Fairbrother, so my last name, at moonlightmeadery.com. You tell me what kegs you want. I can put them up on the LibDib system. And we do have a brand manager in Northern California that's Edge Consulting. So we work with them to help get it to bars and stuff. Happy to. I mean, I've been trying to find what I call a feet on the ground distributor in Northern California for a long time. We were with Half Pint Cider, and that it didn't pan out as well as we'd hoped. And we haven't been able to recover or recoup other than with Liberated Distributor. I mean, we're doing so well in Los Angeles. I got my son living out there now. He's my sales rep for LA County and San Diego. So he does all Southern California, and our sales are up almost tenfold. So, we're real happy with the houses we're at down there, but, we're trying to find the right house for us long term for Northern California, because we want to get our beer in Northern California. You can go into, I think, Total Wine or Bevmo or Total Wine, I know for sure, and buy my beer in Southern California. So just none of it up where you guys live.
And Northern California is the most important part of California. Wouldn't you agree, John?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's hard to get Pliny down here, so
there you go. Yeah. I'll tell you where you can find great mead making ingredients and mead making advice is our good friends at Brew Chatter.
Oh, yes.
They are, Reno adjacent in Sparks. And Sparks is the better part of Reno. Let's all just admit it. And they have all the ingredients you want to make a great mead, make a great melomel, make a great bochet, whatever it would be, and advice. Lovely people, Josh and RJ there at Brew Chatter. They have just an amazing shop with lots of great advice. They've got a little bar in there if you want to go have a beer while you're shopping for your homebrew ingredients. A lot of fun. Good people. Check them out. Brewchatter.com. They're there just outside of Reno. And Reno's a lovely place to go and visit. I don't know if you've ever been there, but you should. All right, let's take a short break. When we come back, we will finish up with our good friend Michael Fairbrother from Moonlight Meadery right after this.
Back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew strong.
All right, we're back. We're talking with Michael Fairbrother from Moonlight Meadery and Hidden Moon Brewery. And does the cidery have a different name, or is it all done under the?
Yeah, it's under the Hidden Moon brand at this point in time. It's for tax purposes in the state of New Hampshire, it ended up saving me, I think, almost $1 a case.
Did they tax you in New Hampshire? I thought New Hampshire was no taxes or death.
Yeah.
Isn't that the motto of New Hampshire?
Live free or die.
Don't tax me or die.
They don't want us to say it's a tax, but it's a excise fee or tax. But yeah, they charge beer 30 cents a gallon, and they charge anything that's made under my winery license at 5% of sale cost. So 30 cents a gallon is a way better deal for the breweries than for the poor wineries. But when I tried to explain it to the wineries, it just was like, oh, this is how it always works. We can't change it. I'm like, tax tomatoes at one rate and cucumbers at another.
All right. I'm warning our affiliates down the line that we're going to go long. We have Michael Fairbrother on here. We're gonna go a little long. I'm just saying. All right, adjustments. Have you let's say you've made a mead and it doesn't turn out exactly the way you want. It's not the acidity is lacking. It's not as bright, or the sweetness is missing, or it lacks body or aroma. How are you dealing with that? Do you just toss it and start over, or are there adjustments you can make to rescue a fallen mead?
Yeah, it's changed for me a lot over the last 25 years. So 25 years ago, I made one of my first batches of mead was a pineapple mead, because the mead I tried was apple, and I said, well, I like apple, but I love pineapple, so let me make a pineapple cider type thing. And so just pineapple juice and honey. But the problem is it fermented dry, and the reason pineapple juice tastes so well to balance all that acidity is it's sweet.
Sugar. Mm-hmm.
Right? And so with no sweetness left, I had all that acidity. And not knowing what I was doing, but have read Charlie Papazian's books, and I'm like, all right, I just need to put it in a keg and let it sit. Well, over the course of the next 5 years, that mead changed fairly dramatically. So,
just wait 5 years. Is that your advice?
That was one option. But where I come at it from now is, let's say I miss the mark and my finishing gravity is too low, right? So I like it a little more sweeter, but it's a little drier. What do I do? Mm-hmm. I don't try to add honey at that point in time, because that's going to change the mouthfeel of the mead. And so your best bet is to make another mead and push higher, and then blend. So blending is I think of it from like the artists who make like Cantillon, and that the sweet and tart and all that balanced flavors. And I'm pretty sure both of you guys have tried some of my Russian Imperial braggots at the Brewing Network events that I've been to over the last several years. And so that was a Russian Imperial that I made with like 60 pounds of honey in a 20-gallon batch. So stupid amount of honey, right? And then I had to pitch it on top of some Flanders yeast to get that to dry it out further, and then to get some sweetness left, I'd blend it with an orange blossom mead at the end, kind of get it to where it was a sweet tart, interesting combination of you had the elements of the stout, you had the elements of the mead, you had elements of a sour, and everybody was like, "What the hell did you do, and how did you make this?" Right? And I'm like, "Well, you really can't make these, and it's going to take like 8 years to make, but this is how you do it." So it's I consider this all in the art form of what do you do once you get there. And that's, I think, what I do really the best, which is taste as we ferment and go through the process and try to see in my mind where it's going and where do I want it to be, and do I hit the mark? And so, I don't try, I tell customers every day that I don't try to make the same mead ever twice. I just try to make the same ballpark. I want to come in the same ballpark. So you taste it, you go, I might like the last one better or the next one better than this, but it's I know it to be this. Yeah. And for the stores that we sell in now, it's not, I don't have that much luxury anymore, right? I can't come in with, let's say, a crust that didn't have all that raspberry flavor that you were just trying, had like a light hint of it. That's not good enough, right? So I can't miss the mark so much that people don't recognize it for what it is, and that makes my job harder, right? So I've really had to become rigorous at how do we measure and check the quality of ingredients coming in? What's the bricks of the concentrate? What's the acceptable levels that we'll take for X, Y, and Z? That's like when I got that honey that had some eucalyptus into it. I'm like, you go, "So don't you like that flavor?" Everybody likes that flavor. I'm like, "No, because this wasn't here before."
Yeah, you really have more challenges with honey, being such an agricultural product. A lot more inconsistency and a lot more variety, batch to batch, to grower than malts.
on the frivolity of the beast, because everything's agriculture. Everything in beer, everything in wine, everything in mead, everything in cider, they're all agricultural products with variability. I think the problem you get with mead is, well, the bees get a bee in their bonnet, and then they go off and do whatever they want.
There's an added level of complexity in sourcing honey than in sourcing malt.
All right. So Dan is asking, I've made a couple of 5-gallon melomels with 20 pounds of honey, 8 pounds of mixed berries added to the primary. How long is too long to keep it in the primary?
Well, with the right nutrient levels, about 3 months is about the maximum time needed. Without that nutrients, it could take a year or two. That amount of fruit is pretty light, so that's less than 2 pounds per gallon. So it depends on your fruit too. So if you're using raspberries and actually have the seeds, you're going to get some oak tannin notes out of the seeds, depending on how long it sits there. So let's say peaches. I got some peaches, and I tried to par the skins off the edges of the peach and use like as much fresh fruit as I could get from a local orchard. Well, that mead got a really nasty aroma to it. I mean, it was worse than body odor type of aroma.
Right. The sulfur in stone fruit can be really off-putting.
It doesn't fade very well.
Well, and Dan's also asking, any pro tips for making a sizer?
Yes.
You do a lot with apple. What are kind of the key components of making a sizer?
So for us, we don't like to get any pressed apple juice that has any sulfites or sorbates added to it. So it's just unpasteurized, just apples.
Mm-hmm.
I do tend to like a lot of dessert apples in most of the sizers that we make. So Gallus, Pippins. Pippin's not really a dessert apple, but add some tannin. Red Delicious, maybe some Cortlands, not too many Macs. We have done heirloom varieties of cider before as well. You can get some really high tannin levels in some of the heirloom ciders. Here in New England, I can go as far west as Western Massachusetts, and some of the apple orchards out there have plenty of unique varieties. I knew my homebrew club was getting some heirloom cider custom press firm this past weekend with my new farm. I'm hoping it has already 12 trees on it, but I'm hoping to expand that to several thousand trees so that we can have different varietals of apples to grow and harvest ourselves for our own cider making facility. But a lot of that's some future stuff. We're going to keep the Londonderry location open for the foreseeable future. But if I can add a destination location that has a farm to, or my wife came up with the name Beehive to Bistro type of effect.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah, you ought to see the pine floors in this house. Some of them are 28 inches wide. The boards, because built in 1753. The inside of the house meticulous. Outside,
I have to come and visit you, brother.
Yeah,
I have a 4-bedroom Airbnb bread and breakfast type of facility on the property. We're going to put in a 10-barrel brew house. We're allowed to have a nano brewery on the farm, and the nano brewery size limit's 2,000 barrels per year. So that's not quite nano in my book, but 8,000 cases. I'll be happy with that kind of.
I'll come and we'll collab.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah. On the do tell, you barrel age that. So, do you have any tips for people about barrel aging a mead?
Time takes time, and the longer you can let it go, the better.
Yeah.
I tend to start most of my meads around 14% alcohol, upwards of 18%. Utopian's at 18. This one's, I think, around 16 per se. It might say 14 on the label. I don't always keep track when I throw some of the stuff out there. I'll do this. I love what the barrels can do for apple. We do all of our cider is barrel aged. So we have Little Apples, which is a 6.5% aged rye, sanitized fooders. So our fooders are, for those who don't know what a fooder is, it's essentially a very, very large oak barrel. The ones we have are 3,100 gallons each, and we have 2 now. So what we do to clean and prep them before reusing them is to run rye whiskey through the CIP port to rehydrate the oak and kill any critters. And then we drain all the rye whiskey out. So it runs on a continuous loop for about an hour and a half. Probably about 15 gallons of rye whiskey going through it at any given point in time.
Wow.
You don't want to put your head in the barrel when you're done.
Have you ever used hops in mead?
I have not.
Oh, well, there. 101 types of mead. I'm just saying. Maybe there's a hoppy mead in your future.
Mm-hmm.
I would go dry as possible, and I would use something fruity. I'm just saying.
Lemon drops.
Hoppy mead.
Michael, what's the most unusual yet successful mead you have made in terms of, a strange flavor whim that hit you, but man, it was good?
Got a couple. So we do a star anise mead. So usually I've got to really love the mead or I'm not making it again.
Right.
I make them for me. It'll be very clear about from the get-go when people say, oh, you got to do this, like pumpkin mead. No, not going to happen. I won't drink a pumpkin mead. It's never going to happen. So the star anise flavor is to me a licorice, and it's unique. Had it not won a gold medal, I probably would have just dropped it, but customers love it. So, it's not always about me. It's, so customers matter.
I'm glad you didn't send it to us because it doesn't sound tasty to me. If people like licorice, I think it would be, yeah.
Yeah.
Those people that like licorice, buy it all up and enjoy it. It's probably amazing.
Yeah, I tend to like my stouts, so I do love my beer. But, the ciders have been really fun for me because, like we get a tanker trailer truck of juice delivered, like almost 7,000 gallons. And, it takes about an hour and a half to pump that much cider out of the truck at full speed. Wow. And, we do add enzymes to the cider to break down any sugars because we don't want to clog up our crossflow filter with the enzyme, or not enzymes, with the pectins. So I still do small batches. We have a society where you can get, I think 3 or 4 bottles from me once a quarter. And they're the super rare, ultra limited stuff that I make really for this club.
Do you have like new stuff coming all the time? What's new coming from Moonlight Meadery? Do you have new stuff coming from for your club, or anybody get it? Or?
All the above. Well, back when the COVID hit first heavy, I shut down my whole team. So that, sitting around by myself, I got busy making some new meads. But we have a new one in the works right now. It's going to be called Brunch. It's a maple and coffee mead with orange blossom honey. Mm. So really rich, strong coffee notes. The maple's over the top. I haven't tried it. It's been about a year in the making. I do have a couple that I did collabs on with Timo and his son from, I can't remember the name of his meadery, from Sweden, I think. Norway? Maybe Norway. God, everyone's going to kill me for not remembering that stuff.
It's the mead.
Yeah, or the beer. But yeah, I do like doing the collabs. I was supposed to brew over in Switzerland this fall, and that all got canceled. But Jonathan Porter and I do a beer every year, buzzworthy, down in Smog City. And I've got a wholesaler license, so I can actually buy my beer from him and then export it around the country to my wholesalers. So,
nice.
I'm looking forward to doing that for the first time this year. So, Jamil, we can do a collab again. I can just buy it, your name on it, and sell it in New Hampshire for you. You don't have to deal with the distributors. I do.
That's great.
We can do fun stuff that way now. I've got more stupid licenses than you can imagine. A wine manufacturer, beverage manufacturer, beverage vendor, and then federal licenses, wholesaler, importer, and wine manufacturer.
You know what's great about most other countries in the world is if you have a license to produce alcohol, they pretty much give you anything to do with alcohol. You can, import alcohol, you can distribute alcohol, it's whatever. You're creating it. Just handling it is no big deal. So you automatically, anybody who has a brewing license, the rest of the world, I'm like, well, can you do that? They're like, we can do anything we want once we actually make alcohol. So just like buying it and reselling it is no big deal. I think the U.S. could learn a bit from that. Pi Ben is asking, what is the simplest yeast to avoid hot mead? USO5 is the option, or is it like fermentation and fermentation, nutrients, temperature, all that. Not necessarily changing the yeast.
Yeah, temperature control is where you're out of control. That's going to cause your hot nose. So, it becomes harder depending on where you live and what your environmental situation is. But if you don't have a way to regulate the temperature of that carboy or that fermenter, you've got to find a solution. Whether you build a jockey box and you ferment at a nice, cool, slow temperature. But what's happening is your yeast is stressed and it's creating fusel alcohols because it's fermenting too fast. And the reason it starts to do that is because the hotter it gets, the faster it ferments, and it forms this nice chain reaction, exothermic, I think is a technical term for it. And it basically means all shit's going to hell and you're going to have to suffer the consequences and wait till a very long time to get something that's really enjoyable. Now, there are wines that are commercially made where they particularly want that to happen. Now, those wines in particular need to age for extended periods of time. They usually in oak to get those flavors to really kind of mellow out. But that's what gives some of those wines.
Esterification of those higher alcohols into fruity flavors over time. Yeah. And Johan was asking, he appreciates the answers. He was saying, any advice for pie mix? The amount of fruit versus juice, types of fruit versus juice?
For the most part, I like to go, any of my fruit meads, it's usually 75% by volume. So, fruit juice makes up that 75%, and 25% would be the honey. That can get you a really sweet mead. So you got to be careful. If it's going to be too sweet, you probably do need some sort of lesser ratio of honey to make sure you're within the range. And what I'd strongly recommend is make half-gallon batches first. Take a half-gallon growler or a growler, 64, make a gallon-sized batch. I had as many as 60 growlers in my basement fermenting at any given point in time at the same time, so I could measure all the different varietals of types of honey, types of fruit, types of, what was the yeast doing, what was, so I had controlled experiments, and I could run it then by like Gordon Strong, Susan Rood, Kurt Stock, Steve Fletty at National Homebrewers conferences in a club room or hotel room, and say, try all these. And I give them, Hawaiian peppercorn mead or, Wahoo honey from Pennsylvania or butterbean honey from Pennsylvania. These are honeys you don't see on the commercial scale, but, they all taste unique.
And since you don't have to boil it or anything like that, making a growler of mead is pretty simple, right?
Yeah, if you're making 25%, so 8 ounces of honey or 16-ounce jar of honey, shake it up into the growler, get it all dissolved in there, throw it in your yeast packet, put on an airlock on it, you're in business in 15 minutes.
There you go. Well, there's the true reason why Michael Fairbrother has started Moonlight Meadery, supplying spectacular meads across the world, is because it's easy, and that's the path he went down. Yes, right?
Certainly easier than software engineering.
Well, it's great to see you, brother. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. Thank you. I can't tell you how much we appreciate that you sent us these 4 delicious bottles of mead. John and I both enjoyed them, and a number of other people have enjoyed them as well. If you're out for enjoying meads, I would seriously suggest you search out Moonlight Meadery. Michael's made some amazing things that are best of show winners that you can find. Just ask your local bottle shop, ask your local tap room if they can source you some Moonlight Meadery. It is out there. They just need to want to have quality stuff. And you tell them that. If you want to have quality stuff as well, check out the Anvil Forge. Really cool, simple brew system. I'm looking for mine in the mail, John.
We'll get it. We'll get it in the mail.
If I get it, I'll be sure to, give it a square evaluation and promote my thoughts about it.
Very good.
I'm in the market for a 10-barrel brew house. So.
BlickmanEngineering.com. Check them out. Check out our good friends at brewchatter.com as well. All good folks that have supported this program and made this possible for the last couple of decades. There you go. So check it out. And, keep on brewing. Make some mead, make some cider, make some wine. Ferment, have fun. We love it, and we hope you do too. Until then, everybody, brew strong.
Brew strong, everyone.
Cheers, everybody.